Hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author and robot, and today is going to be a bit of a news day to catch up on some things that happened in the last week or two, literary-wise. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do on this channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. I try to be as consistent as possible, but you know, life. So, and the holidays are coming up, so I hope you and your family are getting ready to have a Merry Christmas and a good time. And then number two, if you would like to be featured on this channel, check out the two links in the description below. Number one is Pitch Fit, number two is Lemoy, two different ways to be featured on this channel. The last Pitch Fit video for the year is going to be coming up very soon. So we will see if anybody submitting gets into that at this point, or if I go ahead and record that, because it is going to come up very quickly. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and get into the stories. I'm going to have a bunch of short ones to just bring to attention, and then a longer one to talk about that is mildly more relevant to us all. But let's get with the sad news first. And that is, I don't know if you heard, but over the weekend it was announced that Anne Rice, author and screenwriter of Interview with a Vampire and The Vampire Lestat, and so many others, died at the age of 80. It was a complication from a stroke during the middle of the night. She passed away, so she is kind of a big deal. She kind of revolutionized modern day vampires some decades ago, and so I think it is worth mentioning. So thank you for her writing and what she did for vampires before, Twilight, and hopefully there's peace with her family in this difficult time. Now, the next thing is, I don't know if you saw, but Netflix's live-action Cowboy Bebop has been canceled after just one season. Many have rejoiced because there were some questionable choices, a lot of questionable choices. I would say one of the questionable choices is taking something that's a 30-minute show and making it an hour and inserting a bunch of stuff that doesn't quite make sense. But I would also say one of the questionable decisions would be to change a bunch of stuff. You don't even have to change stuff. If you cast a show, even if it is like the best cast show, if your main cast insults the viewers or the fans of the show who were fans before this, original fans, you're going to have a bad time. Not just the cast. If the cast and or crew, the writers, anybody on this starts going after fans, that's not a good choice, and your show's probably not going to do well. It's the same thing. Who was it? Was it Brie Larson that said if you don't... It was either her, or I feel like it might have had Kristen Stewart or something with the new Charlie's Angels. Somebody recently said, hey, this movie is not for you, don't go and watch it. And then they complained when the viewership was down, they didn't make a bunch of money, and yeah, so insulting your readers or your viewers, your fans, your people that you hope are fans is never a good look. I see this also in the writing community. When people don't get the readers that they want, when people get bad reviews, they immediately start crap talking on others, and I just don't necessarily think insulting people is a great sales strategy, or strategy to, not even sales strategy, but a strategy to build community or to build fans or to build something that you have in common with other people. But what do I know? A lot of people get really popular with rage culture. I just don't want to feed the rage culture. I think that it kills you on the inside. I feel like that's something that helped inspire how Bleed More Body More turned out, which is why it's been described by at least two people as a very angry book, which I take that very... with a lot of honor, because Joey is an angry person, and I think she is kind of a symptom of the anger and the disruption and the broken families of the current. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Canceled. We won't, at the moment, have to consider what a season of live-action Radical Ed is. I don't know anything about the actor who is going to play Radical Ed. I just don't think that there are certain things that can be transposed from one medium to another and still look fine. I think there are a lot of things that look cringe, which is why you can't necessarily translate something into every other format or media. And that is something to take into consideration when you are picking a medium for your story, whether it's going to be a cartoon or a live action or a claymation or a TV show or a movie. There are different things to think about for how it poses. And I've thought about this with a couple of stories that I work on with Sam, where some of them I think definitely would work better as a comic rather than a book, but other ones might work better as a novel than a comic. Though I don't think that I would crap on those ones that I am just going to write anyway if he wanted to make them into a comic. Anyway, so there's that good news. Also, see, I told you, they're all vaguely related to creativity. I don't know if you've heard, but Seth Rogen and Sarah Silverman recently released this HBO exclusive TV series, Santa Inc., which is just an HBO exclusive show hating on Christians and white men especially. It has been listed now as the lowest rated TV show ever on IMDb. It was like a 1.1, and even Hollywood reporters and journalists for media are not reviewing this movie, this television show. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants it. It's just so hateful and spiteful and the incomplete opposite of what the season is for. It is just mean-spirited. Like, this is meaner than The Grinch. And then, at least The Grinch got a heart in the end. But I think I saw that they're giving this a second season. I don't know why. But other than wanting to spit roast Christmas again from people that hate Christmas and those that celebrate it. But anyway, there is that. Also, in the news of this disaster of a show with Seth Rogen, he has also been grabbed to produce a reboot of Darkwing Duck. So enjoy that. Nobody is saved from this disaster. Place your bets in the comments below. Were you a fan of Darkwing Duck? Where do you think this is going to go? Also, on the topic of reboots, George Orwell's 1984 is going to get a feminist retelling with approval from late author's estate. I don't know why you would, unless this is a satire all on its own to show exactly what Big Brother is going to do. It's kind of ironic that you would say, yes, George Orwell's book is going to get a feminist remake because isn't it a line specifically in 1984 that every document has been rewritten by the party? Is this not the party rewriting the book that calls them out literally? So that's going to be interesting. This article says the feminist retelling will tell the story from Julia's point of view, and Julia was the love interest of Winston Smith. It says that, penned by Sandra Newman, the book will be titled Julia and explore the events of 1984 through Julia's eyes, with the focus on she understands the world of Oceania far better than Winston and is essentially happy with her life. She has known no other world, and until she meets Winston, never imagined one. She's opportunistic, believing in nothing and caring not at all about politics. She routinely breaks the rules, but also collaborates with the regime whenever necessary. She's an ideal citizen of Oceania, but when one day she finds herself walking toward Winston in a long corridor, she impulsively hands him a note, a potentially suicidal gesture. She comes to realize that she's losing her grip and can no longer safely navigate the world. The publisher further noted that Richard Blair, Orwell's son, has been consulted and approved of the project. That doesn't mean that it's going to be any good. We've seen the destruction of IPs before so many times. According to the literary executor of Orwell's estate, Bill Hamilton, the estate has been looking for some time for someone to give 1984 a feminist revamp, of eventually finding Newman to prove to be a perfect fit. You've been looking for somebody to rewrite the story. How compromised are you, Hamilton, by the party? Julia is set to release sometime after Newman's next novel, The Men, which sees everyone with a Y chromosome banished from the world, hits shelves next June. Is that like a novel version of the comic book, or is it just a ripoff? I need to know, because there's a comic book that is that exact same thing that also just had a television show that was just canceled. So also, if it's anything like that, not a lot of hope there. What is it? Can somebody translate this to me? Because it just seems completely inane and insane. The men's subject matter. Given the men's subject matter, it's possible Julia may never see light of day, as it remains to be seen whether or not Newman's contract survives the inevitable gauntlet of biology-denying outrage that led to the cancellation of a similarly themed... What is biology-denying outrage? And no, that outrage didn't end your show. Nobody wanted to watch it. Like, literally, most people don't care about this kind of stuff. Most people don't care about the kind of identity politics or any sort of politics that are being thrust into this crap. We just want stories. Human stories, not politically divisive, angry stories, which is what this kind of stuff is. That's why it fails, not because of outrage. Y'all are outraged. Y'all are dead already. That's all I gotta say. And the final story for the day is something that is relevant to us all as writers, as authors, as public-facing, whatever, trying to gain audiences. We're always told as authors that we need to have strong social media presences and that our presence on Twitter means everything. The number of followers mean everything. And this is how you end up with a lot of follow for follow campaigns where people not only trade follows for follows, reviews for reviews, thumbs for thumbs, there are many people that will do the follow for follow and then unfollow to try to have that ratio of follow not follow be much higher so it looks more legitimate, because everybody can pretty much guess that if you got 10,000 followers and you're following 10,000 people, you could probably trade it for them. But if you're following 5 people and you're being followed by thousands of people, it looks a lot more legit, like you didn't trade for that positioning, right? But for years now, we've been told that agents look at your social media presence, how many followers you have, and that is one of the big parts of actually landing a deal because they want to see that you have an audience. Well, New York Times recently published this, millions of followers for book sales. It's unreliable. And I don't know about you, I've been saying this for a long time. Social media is not real life, and social media followers do not translate into sales. I think a majority of indies could tell you that just having followers doesn't necessarily translate into sales on their list. If you're an indie with any experience in this, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. That's not to say that if you have a bunch of followers that you're not going to sell books. It's just not a sure thing that if you have a bunch of followers, you're going to sell books. You need some kind of purpose. So let's get into the article itself. This is by Elizabeth Harris. A book by Billie Eilish seemed like a great bet. One of the most famous pop stars in the world, Miss Eilish has 97 million followers on Instagram and another 6 million on Twitter. It's just a fraction of them. If just a fraction of them bought her book, it would be a hit. But her self-titled book has sold about 64,000 hardcover copies since it came out in May, according to NPD BookScan, which tracks most printed books sold in the United States. Not necessarily a disappointing number unless Miss Eilish got a big advance, which, of course, she did. The book cost her publisher well over $1 million. So, first things first is most people are not interested in an autobiography or a memoir by a teenager unless that person, or a 20-year-old, unless that person has lived a really extraordinary life. Making your way to stardom generally doesn't do it for most people to want to read your book unless they are like a super fan of your work, which, the 64,000 hardcovers. But you generally have not lived enough of a life to justify people wanting to read your story. And one of the things that I noticed when I go to writers' conferences is there are so many people there who are specifically, usually older people, who are specifically writing memoirs, and many of the agents and editors that were running panels pointed this out as well, that many of them writing their memoirs, that was not generally a commercial thing. There are also a lot of people who are writing cancer memoirs, especially, or family genealogy memoirs. And those are great to pass down stories in your family, but it's not necessarily a commercial endeavor that is going to land you an agent and a big money deal. Billie Eilish got a big deal because she is already famous and they were hoping that they could make money off of it. I think it's the kind of the opposite of when somebody sees a YouTuber that has millions of subscribers and they go, hey, you should write a book, or hey, you should release a CD because you've got all of these followers who will buy your money. It's always somebody in that accounting office that sees an opportunity and somebody with a following to bank on it. And I've heard a number, I'm not going to speak on their behalfs, but I've heard a number of YouTubers talk about how once they sort of made a name for it themselves, it seemed like agents or some sort of entertainment managers would come forward and try to push them into doing as many things as possible in order to bank on that buck while the iron was hot, to just put a bunch of metaphors all in one. And being famous doesn't mean that you've got this super interesting life that everybody is going to want to read your book, your memoir. You're not necessarily going to be great at making music, and everybody's not necessarily there to listen to you make music if that's not what you got famous for. And I think there is a major misrepresentation on what followers mean or subscribers mean. Is they're there for the personality, which again is which is also one of the reasons why I think it's so important to be honest and be genuine with who you are, so people can find you for who you are and what you're offering, and don't try to shuck garbage at people or sell garbage or lie about who you are or lie about what you're doing. Talk about really what you're doing, who you are, what you're selling, and if you're really going in another direction to go and work on more stuff, that's great. But opportunism and sales because of opportunism are kind of just not helpful. And I'm going off over here. But bottom line is these people are looking at the numbers of followers as if everybody is just a dollar sign. And subscribers and followers and fans of things are not. You have to make it worthwhile, and you have to treat fans with respect. They are not just credit cards. Anyway, it's difficult to predict whether a book will be a hit or not. This is true. A jar of tomato sauce doesn't change that much from year to year, making demand reasonably predictable. But every book is different, an individual work of art or culture, so when the publishing industry tries to forecast demands for a new title, it is, however, thoughtfully guessing. And then that also goes for trends. That also goes for when agents are picking up new books, when they're assuming what will be popular or projecting what they want to be popular. That is them either pushing the culture that they want to see, the tropes that they want to see, the stories that they want to see, or they're projecting based typically on social media marketing. And again, social media is not real life. So trying to guess what people will buy based on what's on social media is wrong. So the good news is an author's following has become a standard part of the equation when publishers are deciding whether to acquire a book. Followings can affect who gets a book deal, how big an advance is for that author, especially when it comes to nonfiction. But despite their importance, they're increasingly seen as unpredictable gauges of how well a book is actually going to sell. So that is the silver lining, is that it looks like, because New York Times is talking about this, the publishing industry is realizing that follower count does not matter and should not matter in finding good books. It's always blown my mind that publishers want debuting authors or new authors or fresh faces to have this massive following before they give you a chance. But how are you supposed to build a following before your book actually gets out there? Because you're supposed to be building your book, or you're supposed to be building your following based on people who enjoy your book, enjoy your work, want to see what you're going to do next. But how can they do that if you haven't been exposed to the public yet? This is like a catch-22 where there's no winning. It is the very point of my short story, Opportunities. How are you going to buy the titties you need to work at the strip club if you can't get the job at the strip club that you need to pay for the titties? This is a problem. But yeah, generally the people on social media have built a reputation for something. They are actors, they are authors, they are politicians, they are something. And for publishers to demand that you have a following before they publish you is just insane to me. What are the merits that are being used to publish on then? Or how are those fans being gauged if it's not based on whether they like your work or not? And that is more likely going to make sales than not. Not even whether somebody likes your work or not, but whether they are interested in your perspective or where you're going. Because with Bodymore, I've had a number of people that either may have had difficulty with Joey or were not quite sure about the story, but they wanted to see where it was going to go next. And so I've had a number of people that were not like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever read, but they're still interested in seeing where it goes next and being exposed to readers and having readers see in your head and see the stories you have to tell and become invested in either your point of view or your character's point of views or your character stories is what's going to actually sell books in the future, not follow for follow, where you don't even really know what that person's story is about because you have done this with 50,000 people and you just keep retweeting stuff without actually reading what they're posting. The only reliable part about it, said Shannon DeVito, director of books at Barnes & Noble, is that it's unreliable. An author's platform has been something publishers look at. Does she have a radio show, for example, or a regular guest spot on TV? But as local news outlets and book coverage has dwindled, the avenues for book publicity have shrunk, making the author's ability to get the word out more crucial. And when an author speaks to her followers about the book she wrote, she is talking to people who are at least a little bit interested in what she has to say. Mark Resnick, executive editor at St. Martin's Press, said, "We've learned some hard lessons along the way, which is that a tweet or a post is not necessarily going to sell any books if it's not the right person with the right book, with the right followers at the right time." Take Justin Timberlake. His book Hindsight was acquired for over $1 million, but when it came out in 2018, Mr. Timberlake had bruised vocal cords and was unable to promote it as planned. The 53 million Instagram followers he had at the time weren't able to make up for it. Hindsight has sold about 100,000 copies since its publication 3 years ago, according to Bookscan, and not nearly the number his publishers had hoped for. Representative Ilhan Omar, a Democrat from Minnesota, is not a global pop star, but she has a significant social media presence with 3 million Twitter followers and another 1.3 million on Instagram. Yet her book, This Is What America Looks Like, My Journey from Refugee to Congressman, was published in May of 2020 and has sold 26,000 copies across print, audio, and book formats, according to her publisher. Tamika D. Mallory, a social activist with over 1 million Instagram followers, was paid over $1 million for a 2-book deal, but her first book, State of Emergency, has sold just 26,000 copies since it was published in May, according to Bookscan. The journalist and media personality Piers Morgan had a weaker showing. Despite his followers on Twitter, 8 million, and Instagram, 1.8 million, Wake Up, Why the World Has Gone Nuts has sold just 5,650 copies since it was published a year ago. One thing that I think needs to be pointed out in this situation is that hate does not sell. Politics really doesn't actually sell product. People remember how you make them feel, and generally when you make somebody angry, or if you're united because you've made somebody angry, they're not going to spend money. And I think that's where a lot of this happens. Like 3 of these just mentioned were political in nature. And people are more likely to buy political books from political people that they like. But if maybe you're united under something of all hating somebody or hating something or hating a movement, that doesn't actually inspire people to spend money on you, to support you. It's people liking who you are as a person. And again, that goes back to what I was talking about earlier in this whole segment, is people will spend money on you or purchase your books if they're interested in who you are, in what you're saying, in your voice, not in maybe the hatred that you have in common. And I think one of the major missteps that publishing industry has done in the last couple of years, maybe longer than that, is more of this focus on identity politics and separation and just inserting politics into everything, which then made everybody hate everybody and has actually disrupted so many just writing groups or friends of writing groups. And we know that politics has disrupted families, and that does not make people enjoy reading. It doesn't make people enjoy the writing community or the reading community or books, which are supposed to bring us together. Hatred doesn't sell. Enjoyment sells. Compassion sells. Entertainment sells. Giving us a chance, you can even create stuff that makes you think. It doesn't have to be just entertainment, but giving entertainment that doesn't make you feel bad or that you didn't purchase out of hate will give you more investment and enjoyment out of the story or the product itself. And so much of the recent traditional, not even just tradition, so much of the recent culture has just been perpetuated and filled with seething hatred that I think is destroying everything. Enjoyment of everything, cohesion of everything, community and everything. And the people that bring just the honest love, kind of like we'll talk about in my next video, which is a book review, that just bring love for what they're doing, for the craft, for the audience, for the people, for everything, make a bigger difference in the community, sell more books, meet, and more important than selling books, connecting with more people. Not for the purpose of selling books, but for the purpose of building human relationships and meeting people on that compassionate and humanitarian level, if you know what I mean. I don't have any other way to say that. It sounds kind of like hippy-dippy, but this goes on to say it's difficult to know why this happens. Sometimes publishing and marketing executives say there is a mismatch between what people post about on social media and the subjects of their books. Perhaps the books don't provide anything beyond what they've already put on Instagram, which is probably likely for anything political. It could be that the author hasn't pushed the book to his followers effectively, or that those followers aren't terribly engaged with his posts. Again, I don't think hatred sells anything. You might be able to get a bunch of click tweets, retweets, whatever, because y'all agree on hating something, but hatred doesn't sell books. So 5,000 likes on a tweet that's meant to hate somebody is not going to get people to go and spend money on you. I'm sorry, I don't think that that's the case, and I think that's why a lot of this is failing. I don't know enough about Justin Timberlake to say anything about his biography, or memoir, assuming that's what that is. But I don't know too many people that would be interested in Justin Timberlake's memoir. Of course, in an effort to mitigate these issues, some book contracts now specify the number of posts required before and after a book is published. I think that's just going to end up making more authors frustrated with the traditional industry, but you let me know. Obviously, there are going to be stipulations, professional stipulations between authors and agents and publishers for this business relationship, but it's already so strained in a couple of different ways. And so it will be interesting to see how the publishing landscape changes over the years. I'm kind of just hoping that we get some more options for book publishing, indie publishing and all that. So you can get like some of the embossed covers, or some of the, I love the gold foil covers, like getting more of those options. I'm looking forward to. Again, positively, crucially, executives say there is also an increasing awareness in the industry about the difference between the number of followers and how engaged they are. Really, do they comment? Do they share? So I say good news. This might just translate into, they're not going to be looking at if they're not going to be looking at if you have 100,000 followers. They're going to be looking at the ratio of interactions with your content, which is just going to change the botting game. A new dimension of this conversation is TikTok, which has become a powerful force in selling books. Successful book talk titles are generally pushed by enthusiastic readers weeping into their cell phones, camera phones, about how much they loved a book, not authors shilling their own work. This is also, I've seen a number of people asking about how to become successful on TikTok, and I'm sure there are authors who have specifically gone to TikTok and become popular on TikTok, but my perspective on it is I'm gonna stay off of it. I think stuff like book talk is very much for the avid reader lover, and if you can't force your own book to go viral on TikTok or really anywhere, it's up to people that either enjoy your work or want to laugh at your work, quite honestly, or want to point out really bad behavior on an author that is going to make it go viral. That's not to say it can't be manipulated, but I don't think that there is any point in an author specifically going to shill their own book on TikTok. I think readers are smarter than that to, they're not going to be tricked into buying your book and think that you're one of them when you're saying, hey, go buy my book. So, and there are certain places where I think that it is just readers' space to do the things that readers want to do, to send out people's books, to enjoy people's books, to talk about people's books, without the author being there trying to sell them more books. So, personally, as a personal decision, I would stay out of book talk, just to leave that to the readers, only the readers, not the reader writers, just so that they can do their thing. And maybe if you're lucky, someday somebody will look at your book and then really like something in your book and then put it on TikTok, and maybe it'll go viral. But I just feel very weird about trying to make your own book go viral. It feels like one of those hello there, fellow kids kind of moment, and it's not. I don't think it's going to work. But if your book does go viral on social media, it is a great way that it can end up selling books, which is why I think so many people rush to try to enter that landscape and manipulate that landscape to sell books, because it is a powerful tool if you take off that way. At the end of this article, it says Tanya McKinney, a literary agent, said that it isn't accurate to say that social media doesn't matter for book sales, but the truth is that the industry really doesn't know what it will do for any given book. If we knew, publishers would make no mistakes, Miss McKinnon said. My whole position on this is that if you find someone who really does know, will you please share their information with me? So there's still just a lot of corporations trying to figure out how to maximize efforts on social media. And you know what I think the most effective thing is? Being genuine. That's it. I think that goes with what I was just talking about with not being on the way that I don't want to approach TikTok. It can just do its thing. What makes PewDiePie so popular even after 10 plus years? He's just genuine. What made anybody popular on YouTube to begin with? It was just them being genuine and getting to see people and genuinely interact with people. Humans crave genuine human interaction, but I think in the current world, and probably forever, there have been so many social pressures to act a certain way, behave a certain way, hide who you are. This is the only type of behavior or thought or whatever that's appropriate. And so people have constantly and still trained themselves to put on masks in certain companies and not be genuine, and that you're supposed to be cutthroat and push people down to get ahead, and you will always be beat up if you're, nice guys finish last kind of thing. But I think what works is you just got to be genuine. And look, now you're going to be like, see, that's why you're genuine, because you're trying to sell stuff. No, I don't know how to fake being somebody else, okay? So I can only just be myself. Look, if I knew how to be somebody else, I wouldn't brag about having a Jeffrey Dahmer action figure, okay? I know that it's weird. I just accept that I have some weird obsessions and points of view. And, hopefully, by sharing my own weird, I'll find other people that just want to be their own weird, and we can be our genuine selves together and make real human connections. Because I think that's the bottom line, what everybody is craving all the time anyway, is just a chance to be themselves, to talk to people, and to not be judged for maybe what makes them special or what makes them think different or what have you. So anyway, I feel like I'm getting off of the rails here. So that is the I feel like I'm getting off of the rails here. So I'm going to leave it there. Those were all of the news items that I wanted to talk about this week. Let me know what your thoughts are on any or all of them or one of them down in the comments below. I look forward to your thoughts, especially any of your comments on this social media thing with the followers, what your thoughts are on follower count, on book sales, on what, I don't know, how you use it, what you think people are looking for, anything, any of that. It's an interesting subject, but also I think social media kind of tries to trick people into being non-genuine versions of themselves, which is also how you end up getting so much vitriol, because people can just be the worst versions of themselves with very little consequence depending on how they mask themselves, and that can cause other dangers on other people. Anyway, there's a whole lot of this to go on that could just go on forever. So with all that said, thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great Monday, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?